Today we're at Carlsbad Caverns National Park here in southern New Mexico, and we're going to dive into some caverns and dive into a little murder mystery as well. Stay tuned. I'm here today at Carlsbad Caverns National Park in southern New Mexico on just a spectacular late October day. It's amazing here. The Chihuahuan Desert still got wildflowers in bloom. The desert is still on fire, and it's just beautiful out here. But I'm here to see a couple of things. Of course, the caverns that are under my feet as we speak. But also, I stumbled across a really interesting national park mystery, and I always kind of like these kinds of things. And it happened right here in this canyon in front of me. Rattlesnake Canyon out here in the western part of the park. 20 years ago, 1999, two really good friends, Rafi Kadikian and David Coughlin from Boston, planned a big cross-country road trip, as many of us do, and they made a stop here at Carlsbad Caverns and decided to backpack into this canyon a ways and camp overnight. There's no other camping in the park, so they took what they thought they needed and hiked into the canyon. Unfortunately, they only took two liters of water, a map they didn't know how to read, they had no way of finding directions, and they got hopelessly lost. The first night they used a half of one of their liters to cook hot dogs. And so without any water in August, 1st of August temperatures, it's brutal out here. There's not much shade. There's no water out here in these canyons. And they got dehydrated, which led probably to poor decision making and more dehydration and more poor decision making and so forth and so on, until on the third night, things took a really drastic turn for the worst. But before we get to that, let's go to the caves and see what's cooking down in those canyons. All right, now descending down into the depths of the cave. It's scary down there, but I can feel the cool air as well as the nice fresh stench of kind of bat guano. But yeah, I gotta go down there.
As I descend into the natural entrance to the caverns, I can't help but think about early visitors to the cave. Archaeological evidence suggests that the caves have been visited for the past 12,000 years. And as the Mescalero Apache entered this area in the 1400s, they surely knew about this place as well. In 1898, Texas-born cowhand Jim White entered the cavern through this entrance, making him the first non-native in the cave. Using crude torches and homemade wire ladders, Jim amazingly explored deep into the cavern system, naming many of the features we see today. Now, having done a bit of wild caving myself, I can't imagine doing what he did. We had headlamps with multiple backups. Jim had a stick torch with kerosene and a way to make a spark. Truly terrifying. By the way, I did not enjoy caving all that much. Now, once word of Jim's discovery got out, people wanted to see it. Nothing like this had ever been found before. Of course, the cavern also contained a seemingly unlimited supply of bat guano. That's a weird word. Which set off a mining craze that lasted 20 years. Luckily for us, photos of the cavern appeared in the New York Times in 1923, which prompted President Calvin Coolidge to proclaim a national monument later that year. Congress established the national park in 1930, and thank God, elevators were added in 1932.
It's my last little bit of sunlight before I descend into the cave, and it's kind of, I'll turn around here so you can see it's way up there, up over my shoulder. We've come down that far, and it's just blackness out in front of me. And so this ought to be fun. And as we descend into the cave, let's go up to the surface and see what's going on. That third night that Rafi and David spent down in Rattlesnake Canyon here was hellish. They had been licking rocks and eating cactus fruit, and eating other plants out here. A lot of these plants are toxic, but to no avail. They were mad with thirst and delirious, as Rafi later testified. Hate to spoil it there. About 5 or 6 in the morning, Rafi testifies that David, after vomiting all night and writhing in pain, begged him to take a knife and kill him. So he did. Not only did he stab him in the chest once, which didn't quite kill him, he stabbed him again. This time got him. And that was the end of David. David was dead. Now, when the next day he was found by a park ranger, both of them were, and as the park ranger walked up, there's a pile of rocks and a distraught, dehydrated Rafi claiming to have killed him. That must have been a scene to come on to. We'll get to a little bit more later. Let's go back to the cave. This is kind of bizarre. Now we're heading into the lunchroom restroom area. And it's really kind of weird down here. I can hear equipment running. There's a little signpost where everything's at. And this is also where the elevators are, I guess, where you take off and go back. Very, very strange down here. Going in the elevator. They're getting out while they're getting good. Oh yeah. It's like a weird, it's in a little room, your cave room. It's like a weird 1970s apocalyptic movie, kind of like Logan's Run meets Beneath the Planet of the Apes. This is some of the most bizarre Park Service stuff there is. There's an information kiosk. There's souvenirs. And yeah, we're 700 feet underground. Just really kind of weird. I guess they have to keep everything in plastic to keep moss from growing on it. Going down the restroom tunnel. This is kind of weird. Marching you off somewhere. I don't know where you pee. There's drains in the floor. Oh, for God's sakes. Scary. Oh, there is a restroom back here. So we get down in here. I'm using my cell phone for lighting, so it's kind of weird looking, I'm sure. But interesting nonetheless. But I worked my way down these switchbacks further down into the cave. I want to know what's happening with our story up on the surface. Let's go check in on that. Well, once the Park Service and the Sheriff's Department got involved, had a lot of questions. This was kind of a weird case. Rafi claims it was a mercy killing, and he was delirious from dehydration and exhaustion and lack of food, and told his story of David begging him to end his life, and he did. And he even said they had a murder-suicide pact, and he tried to slice his own wrist, but the knife wasn't sharp enough to cut through. And which is interesting, it was sharp enough to stab a guy a couple of times. But anyway, his lawyer, when it all went to trial, claimed it is, of course, a mercy killing and kind of a temporary insanity thing. Of course, the only story we have is Rafi's. And he eventually pled guilty to a lesser manslaughter charge. And in the whole investigation, one of the things that the Sheriff's Department and the Park Service noted was he covered David's body in rocks, and some of the rocks he used were upwards of 70 pounds. And he claimed that he didn't want vultures or animals to get to the body, and it seemed like a good bit of work to be done by somebody who's severely dehydrated. Autopsy on the body found that he was dehydrated, but not to a fatal extent. Probably this retching and vomiting came from eating unripe cactus fruit and other things out here that you shouldn't be eating. And as far as Rafi, he was dehydrated, but of course, again, not to the point of being almost fatally dehydrated. And so they even sent investigators up to Boston to check out and see if anything was going on, and girlfriends or whatnot, and they couldn't find anything. So the judge ended up giving him a 15-year sentence, but suspending 13 years of it. So he did I think he did 18 months or so, got out 5 years probation, and is not talking. So we'll never really know quite what happened down there. And talk around rangers here and love triangles and whatnot. I would have loved to have been, a fly on the canyon wall down there to know what happened. And I guess probably the only ones that know are David and Rafi, and David ain't talking. Neither's Rafi. So that's my murder mystery story that took place 20 years ago, right down in this canyon. And kind of a good thing for this Halloween time of year. So now we had finished the big room tour, and now we're gonna head back to see about taking that elevator back to the surface. I don't want to go up that trail again. Oh, here's the elevator room. Yes. Nobody's here yet.
Last kid, come there. Come on in, folks. We got space.
Appreciate that.
No problem.
Hey, this is like something done ago. Is this the lower tour thing?
This is the left-hand tunnel tool.
Left-hand tunnel, okay.
If you ever want to go on a section of the cave, like lower cave or left-hand tunnel, I'd recommend you make them reservations as far in advance as possible, because this tour has 10 spots available.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
as a
Goes
result,
fast.
it's oftentimes sold out well in advance.
Sounds good.
When I was a kid, we went in New Cave.
New Cave is now called Slaughter Canyon Cave, because every cave that gets discovered is frequently called the New Cave. And like, there's even Wind Cave, which, if you spell wind backwards, what do you get? New Cave. Yeah. So it's now called Slaughter Canyon.
Okay.
Cave. Same cave, different name.
It was a cool primitive tour.
Yeah, absolutely. It still is a very cool tour. It's just a little different nowadays, of course, because of the fact that, it used to be that we hosted that tour 2 times a day, and you had to go all the way up to the trailhead to meet your ranger to go into the cave. Now we meet here and then drive all the way to the head of the trail and then go into the cave once a day.
Oh, wow.
Very different than how we used to do it. But when it was called New Cave, we were still doing that. So.
I just remember I like it muddy and wet.
And awesome.
Right.
That's you guys got any final questions?
No.
Alright, take care. I want to play. If you think of any, front desk can have you assist you.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
Oh look, it led us right off in a gift shop. How about that? Who would have thought? And we're out. Yay, we survived the cave. While all the action's going on underground here down in the caverns, and that's where all the people are, up here on the surface, it's really a kind of a wonderful experience. You've got a classic high Chihuahuan desert habitat with your yuccas and cactus, and everything has spikes on it. But here we are at the end of October, and wildflowers are still everywhere. We've got purples and yellows, and I've seen a few oranges. Birds are everywhere. Temperatures are beautiful. Of course, the sky is brilliant today. But great places to hike around out here on the surface of the park. And of course, infamous Rattlesnake Canyon is one of those great places you can go. Nice place for, you know, an overnight, maybe 2 nights. Spend in there. Take plenty of water and pick your hiking partner carefully. But beautiful canyon. It is a beautiful experience. And of course, nobody's out here. Everybody's under my feet down in the caves, which is kind of a weird thing to think about. Well, it's time to set up camp. I'm out here at the Chosa BLM. They call it a campground. What it mainly is a abandoned oil platform. It's like 5 acres cleared flat with a pipe fence all the way around it. And it's just first come, first serve. You're on your own. A couple of informal fire rings and whatnot, but overall, it's just a big place to camp for free. Better than a Walmart parking lot, I suppose. Have a good night.
Please take a moment to subscribe to my channel. It helps me out and is greatly appreciated. Also, leave a comment, if only to say hi. It lets me know that there are some real people out there. Thanks for watching.